Coming up on Market to Market, farmers give their perspective on the EPA and agriculture. Our mid-season crop checkup has some similarities to last year and one big discrepancy. And the commodity market analysis of Matthew Bennett next.
What's next doesn't happen by chance. It happens when researchers and farmers work together to solve tomorrow's agronomic challenges. We're committed to creating what's next, because at Pioneer, our name is our mission.
Family owned and operated for more than 60 years, Sukup Manufacturing is a full-service provider of grain handling, storage, and drying equipment, helping farmers feed and fuel the world.
For over 45 years, Steiner Tractor Parts has shared your love of antique tractors, new parts for old tractors. Learn more at steinertractor.com or at 877-559-7887.
Tomorrow. For over 100 years, we've worked to help our customers be ready for tomorrow. Trust in tomorrow. Information is available from a Grinnell Mutual agent today.
This is the Friday, July 12th edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Paul Yeager. Pocketbook issues have always been top of mind for almost all of us. How much something costs is something we've all talked about heavily since 2020. And since the pandemic, the easy answer for prices has been to say higher. Until now. The Consumer Price Index fell in June for the first time since the pandemic began, dropping 0.1%. The 12-month rate is at 3%, the lowest level in more than 3 years. The core readings for both markers increased. The decline may be short-lived as the wholesale mark of the Producer Price Index rose 0.2% for the month and added 2.6% on the year-over-year reading. The driver was a volatile section of the report. However, the core reading was unchanged, keeping economists less concerned on this report. Congress returned for some work in the committee rooms this week. The EPA was the subject of 2 hearings, including one centered on agriculture. Peter Tubbs recaps the testimony.
This week, the House Agriculture Committee held a hearing to study the effects that policies of the Environmental Protection Agency are having on American agriculture. Several witnesses testified that while the EPA can be quick to limit some chemical uses in agriculture, they can also be slow to approve or update the use of other chemicals.
Reading through your testimony, I felt the same issues in my district relating to the recent dicamba decision that left many producers scrambling after the purchases for the year had been made. Can you provide insight on how this last-minute nature, this decision, affected your producers?
Yeah, we were really stressed out in the state of Missouri, as were other producers in other states, because we didn't have the certainty. We had the product sitting in the shed, but we weren't sure if we were going to be able to use it. We were very satisfied that EPA made a quick decision with the existing stocks order, and they helped us for the 2024 growing season. But we still have uncertainty for 2025.
So you don't know what to expect going forward. They could change their mind again, right?
Right, and the biggest challenge is the seed supply. Right now, this year, the seed for 2025 is being grown. And so if that dicamba product is not going to be available, we're going to have seed technology out there, but we're not going to be able to have the crop protection technology to help with that.
And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about why you think that's the right approach, and maybe starting by the weaknesses of having a more fractured, balkanized approach toward labeling. Dr. Larson?
It's very difficult to understand the impacts on human health and the environment from various pesticides. You need formal training and education to understand how to evaluate that. So thinking that we can push it down to the local level and have county commissioners or state legislators try and decide what the risk of a pesticide is very complicated. It should reside within the EPA with the PhD level scientists that are doing those critical and well thought out experiments.
Have you been seeing farmers go out of business because they can't keep up with the cost of these regulations and the price of the materials themselves, since they have a narrower window of market?
We need to make sure that they have many choices when it comes to crop protection tools, and we need to make sure that the rules and regulations in place are things that are workable. That's why we encourage the state departments of ag being able to be a part of these decisions with EPA, so we can represent what that small farmer and at the boots on the ground are seeing when they try to implement those regulations as written.
For Market to Market, I'm Peter Tubbs.
The massive heat dome over the West is slowly moving east, but not before more than 50 cities in California and Nevada set all-time heat records. The drought monitor is at its lowest level since the first of the year, as rains have been plentiful in much of the upper Midwest, including parts of the eastern Corn Belt, which were dumped on by what was left of Hurricane Beryl this week. In the wake of those weather systems, we have two farmer perspectives to share this week, one in Nebraska and the other in Michigan. They are part of our ongoing MTOM podcast, and portions of those conversations are this week's cover story.
Yep, you're seeing it right. We are not doing anything today, nor will we be for probably at least a week. So we got quite a bit of rain over the last 24 hours, so 4 to 5 inches. So we'll be doing what regular people do.
The last time we chatted, you were trying to basically get in rainstorms to plant. And I watched the weather, and I felt bad that I probably took you, that 20 minutes probably cost you some time in the field, but you had, again, small windows this spring.
Yeah, small windows. We never really, it's been that way all, we never get any stretch in, whether it was planting or spraying or hay. It is all a couple days here, a couple days there. So we don't get too tired. So we get plenty of rest.
There's no big sprints for you?
No, there's been no marathons this year. It's just, just little dashes.
Is everything in and planted?
Yep, we got everything in good shape. It was the last little bit got in June 4th. So just a few days later than what we wanted, but we were pretty happy.
And if I remember correctly, that June 4th is ahead of last year's late plant date that you had, right?
Yep. Last year we were like June 10th or 11th, I think.
So improvement.
Oh, yeah. Well, and last year we had 0 rain in June. So where that's not the case this year. We've had plenty of rain in June.
Okay, so everything's up, or everything's in, everything came up. Is everything done that you want done to your crop?
Yeah, we just have a little bit more spraying we were hoping to get done before we got all this water. Just to touch up some beans, but everything else is done. Well, scratch that. Wheat's not done. So the wheat is going to be sitting for a second. We run into a lot of this wheat goes right to the mills right here. And so it's all on quality. So if you have good quality wheat, you can get rid of it easy. If it turns poor quality, like if it starts to sprout and that, then you're fighting it the rest of the year just to get it out. So
what's the target date to get the wheat out?
Well, it would have been this weekend, but we're hoping to get back on next week. I don't know if we will or not. To be honest, I've never had this much rain at one time on this farm, so I don't know how long it's going to take for it to dry out.
There are not many people that have used the word ideal in describing this year at all. So how many ideal days have you had, Brian?
Well, this has been an ideal for spraying. We did not have all ideal days during planting, but we were more fortunate than a lot of others, I feel like. So it was stressful at the time, but considering, I think things look pretty good, and I think maybe we're through the most stressful part of it, I hope.
You are in northeast Nebraska, and your parallel is even to where some of the heaviest rain has fallen in the Midwest this year.
Yes.
What were you in that path? Did you have a lot of water?
We've had a lot of rain, and we've had one big event, but the rest has been able to handle it. We've had some big rains that we didn't get all soaked in, but we had a 3.5-inch rain, I believe April 16th, but that was our biggest volume at once. And I'd say we're probably pushing 20 inches of rain since planting or shortly before planting, but it's come not all at once like some of our neighbors have. We haven't had a lot of storms yet, and for the most part, a little excessive at planting time, but after the last few years, we weren't going to complain either. So we took it, managed, and got it in, I guess.
I'm going to guess that 20 inches of rain since April would be equivalent to what you had the previous 2 years almost combined.
Oh, yeah, maybe more. But yeah, very close.
I had a guy ask me yesterday, he heard in Nebraska that the pivots aren't really running like they normally would by this time. What's your report from your area about pivots and how many are running?
Yeah, that's correct. I know we mentioned on our earlier chat that you wanted to see a pivot up close, and the sun, we didn't get cooperative lighting, but in my background, the neighbor he is running a pivot in the cornfield behind us, but he's also putting on his nitrogen. I think the only pivots running around us right now, they're putting on fertilizer through the pivot. I don't think anybody's just running to water yet. I think it's all, I would say I don't know. We got some neighbors running, but I know they're all putting on fertilizer with the pivot. So I think that's the only ones running that I know of right now.
That has to be almost unheard of.
Yeah, last year we were heavily irrigating in June. We had made a few circles already in June. So yeah, and our profile's full. And on the field, just a half mile south of here, we have a cornfield with a soil probe, a moisture probe in it. And it still says we're like 91% full. I just checked it before you called because I wondered if you'd ask. And so, yeah, I don't know. It sounds, maybe the extended forecast sounds a little bit dry, not overly hot, but we may run next week but our profile is probably as full as it's been in maybe 3 years. I don't know, for sure 2 years. So, I mean, even if we do start irrigating, at least we have something to work with this year. Last year, we were just irrigating to keep the ground wet. And now we have subsoil moisture this year. So we're way further ahead than we have in the past years. Yeah, I would guess since March, we probably have 22 or 23 inches of rain on most of our farms. So that's our annual rainfall in a matter of a month and a half, 2 months. So yeah, it should charge up. The groundwater should be up. I mean, it should just help with everything.
The full MTOM episode will release Tuesday.
Next, the Market to Market Report.
Optimal weather for harvest and pollination pressured the trade. For the week, the nearby wheat contract fell 40 cents, and the September corn contract lost 9 cents. China broke the seal on placing orders for new crop, but limited weather concerns cast the bigger shadow over the soy complex. The August soybean contract shed 61 cents, while August meal decreased $18.40 per ton. December cotton expanded by 29 cents per hundredweight. Over in the dairy parlor, August Class 3 milk futures weakened 40 cents. The livestock market was lower. August cattle shed 405, August feeders cut 283, and the August lean hog contract lost 73 cents. In the currency markets, the U.S. dollar index weakened 73 ticks. August crude oil contracted 79 cents per barrel. COMEX gold added $22.70 per ounce. And the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index was down almost 11 points to settle at 577.65. Joining us now is regular market analyst Matthew Bennett. You got a smile. I don't know how.
Markets went up today.
Markets went up today. Let's start with wheat. Then we'll get into the report. Today's report is more of is it a confirmation of 2 weeks ago, or is it a leader?
Okay, let's talk, if you want to talk wheat.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially what the report told you is that, yes, this is a big crop. As far as the total wheat crop size, 134 million bushels higher. And so they toyed with demand just a little bit, but bottom line is you took carryout up 100 million. Now, I will say this, or 98, but I will say this, Paul. If you look at the world balance sheet, you continue to see some restriction or constriction of the world balance sheet to whereas we're still kind of drawing stocks down a little bit. overall, you've got to think that that will keep you from an absolute plummet in the market over the long term. And the wheat market's been beat up bad enough over the last several weeks anyway. I've got to think we'll find some footing. But boy, after the report, we certainly dropped double digits.
Speaking of big carryouts, how about that corn carryout?
That was an interesting report, to say the least. I will say this, Paul. Whenever I first saw, the first number I saw was new crop carryout at 2097. I said, "What? Thank you, but what is this?" And so, essentially what happened was with old crop, Paul, they took feed and residual usage up 75 million bushels, which is interesting considering the June quarterly stocks implied usage was 120 million bushel lower than what the trade had expected. And so you would expect that usage would have gone down, correct? But essentially you saw exports go up 75, which I can get on board with that. But exports the last 2 or 3 weeks concern me a little bit. We're still competitive in the market, but in the world market. But as far as feed and residual usage, I was very surprised to see them raise that. It's a good thing for us, clearly, but I was not expecting that. And then feed and residual for next year is just out of this world.
But is it a compensation for other reports or other sentiment?
That's a really good question, but what I'm going off of is what were stocks at the June 1st? What were June 1st stocks? And they were more than we all thought that they were. So it's very interesting to come in here and say, actually, usage is a lot better than what we all thought, even though just a couple weeks ago we told you usage is not as good as what we all thought, and so maybe you're looking at last year's crop, maybe having to constrict that just a little bit. I will say basis levels, especially out here in West, are awfully good. Even in my part of Illinois, there's a lot of corn on the farm. USDA said 3 billion bushels, okay? But basis levels are awfully strong. Why? Because people have been stubborn, about selling corn, and so they're kind of waiting around. Basis trying to do the work. But at a place like ADM Decatur, where I'm close to, whenever, even basis included, from 3 weeks ago, we're about 50 cents lower on the cash price.
This is the most questions I've had in quite some time, and they're pretty much everything you just said in that sentiment. But I have one I want to give you specifically here. This was Keith, came off of X. When will the producer cry uncle and move old crop grains and oilseeds in order to make room for new crop? Or will they leave it in storage and deliver new crop at harvest?
That's a really good question. Essentially, it's been very hard for the producer to take a look at, hey, here's what my old crop's worth. Here's what I had invested in that 2023 crop. More so, here's what my 24 crop cost me to put it in. Are they going to sell 24? Either one of them, Paul, if we're going to be clear about it, are going to be sold with the producer not making money on those bushels. It's not fun to talk about, but that's the bottom line. And so it makes it so hard to make sales. I get it. But the problem, Paul, once you hold old crop bushels past pollination, if you're in a year, which is relatively speaking, a very large carryout year, especially compared to the previous few years, it's typically not real good for price action. So you've seen these folks trying to get a hold of bushels, right? You see basis narrowing up. Bottom line is this. The producer's been tight-fisted. Once these bushels start moving, I'm very concerned once you get into the month of August that you could really see basis go away from you very quickly, because in the South, they're going to start harvesting fairly early. Any folks that in my part of the world that started planting in April with a hot summer, when I get home from Farm Progress Show, I know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be in the seat of a combine.
Well, we have more. I have a couple other new crop questions we'll get to in plus, but I need to get to soybeans for a minute because it's almost the same as wheat and corn here. It's like copy-paste of still a large carryout, still a great crop potential is out there. Let's start old crop. Again, you're going to have to sell something to make this market move?
I don't see as many stocks of old crop beans as what the trade told us as far as June 1st was concerned. A lot of the originators out there are like, where are the beans? We're having a hard time finding the beans. And so that's kind of an interesting dynamic that we're dealing with. But is the producer going to sell beans? If they've got them, I've got to think they'll go ahead and reward the market somewhere in here. It's very concerning to see, for instance, new crop beans fluttering around on both sides of $11. Yeah. Anytime we get above 11, which last week we were above 11, and Paul, I talked about in my newsletter, hey, we probably ought to be considering selling some of these beans. I had several people reach out and say, don't you think they have a shot at going to 12? No, I really don't, Do
you think it has just as much of an opportunity to go to 12 as it does to 9?
Boy, that's a really good question. But I would say It's got as much opportunity to go to 12 as it does to 9, but a much greater opportunity to go to 10 is what it does to 12. I'm firmly confident, and I don't take joy in saying this, but there's going to be a lot of cash being sold with a 9 in front of them this fall. If they're sold across the scale, I've got to think. So if you've got cash needs for fall, let's stop and look right now at what you can get. What are your cash needs? Lock something in. Lock in a worst case scenario, because I'm pretty concerned, especially when you look at that new crop world balance sheet. You know, you're talking just a massive increase over the 2-year period from 100 million tons of beans up to 128. I mean, that's just a massive increase over the 2 marketing years that the USDA gave us. And why is that? Well, Sefraza Mercado said here this week that they see 171 million metric ton crop out of Brazil next year. That's a big crop. It'll be the 19th year in a row they've planted more soybeans.
And we have a question about Brazil, and there's rumors in Brazil. So what do I do if I read things on a global scale and I'm sitting here with a new crop and it's hovering around 1050 and you're telling me 9. So you're telling me to book something.
I am.
Right now.
I am. Here's the problem. Whether we're talking corn or beans, for a lot of folks, Paul, booking something right now does not mean that we're going to make money. It's not a fun topic to talk about, you know, but here's the thing. What is the potential of the market? Is there still downside risk? Absolutely. And so if there's downside risk and I'm in a position that I can go ahead and lock in something, whatever it is, whether it's a smaller loss than what I'm afraid of, go ahead and lock something in, and then you use risk management just in case you get some sort of a recovery rally. But I would say the risk for the producer is still to the downside right now.
Let's go to livestock for the live cattle sense. All of a sudden there is a flashing technical sign that I think has some attention. What is it?
Oh, I mean, you know, as far as cattle are concerned, I want to go here first. As far as feeders went this week, it was not a great week. Right? But overall, you've got to ask yourself this, Paul. What is the cash market doing? I had guys asking me last night. I was in northwestern Iowa. Should I be buying $3 feeders? You know, and I said, well, what do you think your price of your cost of gain is going to be? And the problem is the booking out is pretty tough to do, because the bottom line is a lot of these cash prices, the disparity between the cash and front month futures is so large. But from a technical standpoint, really, when I look at live cattle, you still have an uptrend in place. But I'm getting a little bit concerned that the trader does not want to be 100% committed, for instance, to making new all-time highs. I thought that we could for a while this year. I think cattle on feed is going to be extremely bullish moving forward because the numbers were so high September through December last year. That means that you're probably going to have some pretty low-looking numbers this year. I don't think the trader wants to get super bearish in front of those, but I think they're just running out of enthusiasm to stay long.
But I have to look at that contrarily and think, if they're short everything else on grains, why would they not continue to go long on live cattle?
Yeah,
because it's been a winner for them.
It's been a winner for them, but at some point, whenever the cost of corn comes down, many times you will see the price of proteins trend lower. Now, the producer can make a lot of money with cheap corn, correct? But the bottom line is, a lot of times you'll see when the price of corn comes down, historically, you'll see cattle follow suit eventually. And so, yes, the numbers are going to be tight. We know that. From a fundamental standpoint, this is really the best thing that we've had to talk about for months, right? I mean, it's been the most bullish, most fun thing to discuss, and I've enjoyed discussing this. But at the same time, I think it's getting long in the tooth as far as this market goes.
Not been very fun to discuss the hog market, though.
No, it hasn't. The hog market, you know, when we got into triple digits here just, 6-8 weeks ago, I said, you know, I just can't imagine trying to buy triple digit hogs in here. What have we seen lately? We've seen sows go into market. We've seen production go up significantly. I don't look for any big Chinese demand coming up. I'm very concerned about hog prices. I think they could stabilize in here, especially with the cattle market staying fairly well supported. If the cattle market stays supported, I don't think hogs are just going to plummet. They've already done their plummet, in my opinion. I think they find some support down here, but I'm still not bullish.
But do you see any opportunity to turn bullish in hogs before you see the bearishness set in cattle?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
I think that if you would see cattle run up, let's say cattle run up with a really bullish cattle on feed report, which I think we get, If you saw them run up significantly, then I think you could see hogs go up. If cattle go down, I don't see hogs going up.
I hate to put you in a tough spot, but I had to. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, Matt Bennett, everyone. We are going to pause this analysis, continue our discussion about these markets in our Market Plus segment. You can find both analysis and plus on our website of markettomarket.org. YouTube is the first place this program appears. Stay in the loop by subscribing to our channel, clicking on the bell to get notifications of new content, and let the technology work for you. Find us at Market to Market on YouTube. Next week, honoring the tradition of cheese making. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great week.
Market to Market is a production of Iowa PBS, which is solely responsible for its content.
What's next doesn't happen by chance. It happens when researchers and farmers work together to solve tomorrow's agronomic challenges. We're committed to creating what's next, because at Pioneer, our name is our mission.
Family owned and operated for more than 60 years, Sukup Manufacturing is a full-service provider of grain handling, storage, and drying equipment, helping farmers feed and fuel the world.
For over 45 years, Steiner Tractor Parts has shared your love of antique tractors. New parts for old tractors. Learn more at steinertractor.com or at 877-559-7887.
Tomorrow. For over 100 years, we've worked to help our customers be ready for tomorrow. Trust in tomorrow. Information is available from a Grinnell Mutual agent today.